So this video isn't really a story time or pressing issues or anything like that. It's more of a random thought I had that I'll put on the internet type of video, because I've got stuff to do today, so I thought I'd fire this quick one out for you and then let you have a ponder in the comments. As some of you may have gathered from recent tweets and videos I've made in the last week or so, it's pretty damn warm outside, and Brits don't have air conditioning because our bodies and houses are designed to keep the heat in and the rain out. And we don't buy aircon because we just know that we'll buy aircon and then not get to use it for the next 6 summers because it'll be cold and rainy. But while I was sat in bed at 1 AM this morning soaking in my own water, a tweet caught my eye that I just had to respond to. And it's a situation that's been brought up so much since the Hamilton-Verstappen clash at Silverstone on Sunday, and that is Suzuka 1990. It was between the two championship contenders at the time, who were by far and away the best 2 drivers on the grid, and B, there are claims that it was intentional on one driver's part. You know, Suzuka 1990 was intentional, the one at the weekend wasn't.
Hamilton boys.
The tweet in question surrounded what helped lead up to that crash in 1990 in the first place. Well, one of the reasons anyway, and that is the claims that the FIA moved pole position to the dirty side of the track purely to screw with Senna. So I got thinking, why do so many people believe this, and where did it come from? Is it Mandela effect? Now, the Mandela effect is something I've talked about before in a video where I looked at F1's top conspiracy theories, at least. I think that was the one. No, it was the one about F1 being better back in the day. And to save you the time of having to go and find that video and watch it and learn, I'll just recap in case you've forgotten or you're new to the concept. The Mandela effect is when you remember something to the point where you are convinced that something happened or something is what it is, because that's how you remember it, but it wasn't. And the name comes from a website created by Fiona Broom where she remembers Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the early 1990s. But the fact is, Mandela was released from prison, became president between 1994 and 1999, and then died in 2013. The most prominent example of the Mandela effect I can think of is the confrontation between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader on Bespin in Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. People often quote the famous line as being, "Luke, I am your father," when in fact the conversation was, "Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me everything. He said you killed him. No, I am your father." Teenage screeching. There is also the fact that 12 months prior to the events of Suzuka 1990, there was the infamous disqualification of Senna at the previous year's Grand Prix, a debate that will rage on until all human existence is erased from the planet. Senna and many of his fans, and many others in the Formula 1 YouTube sphere and actually just Formula 1 fans in general, feel that the championship was robbed from him because of that disqualification. But you do need to factor in that in 1989 Senna had to win both rounds at the end of the season. He had to win at Suzuka and at Adelaide. So disqualification, as fair or unjust as you may see it or not, Senna would have lost the title anyway because he retired from the Australian Grand Prix. Although that comeback at Suzuka was pretty damn impressive. So as you can imagine, heading into the Japanese Grand Prix the following year, he was still riding the injustice he felt he'd received 12 months previous. Carrying on from the way he, according to journalist David Tremaine writing in 1991, stomped around the Adelaide paddock and used his unrivaled presence to get the help of the press to help stop the baddies at the FIA. Which then leads us into 1990, where the whole "they moved it" thing started. Now there's 2 versions of the history, and I can't find confirmation that one is true over the other. Apparently there is footage from the driver's briefing at that race, but I can only find the bits where they're talking about the cutting the chicane, not about the grid slots. The story starts with Berger and Senna going to the officials, not President Jean-Marie Balestri, and asking if pole position can be moved from the dirty side of the track closest to the pit wall to the outside of the track where all the rubber is. Now this was in the days of warm-up prior to race starts, and you'd often find drivers who were starting on the dirty side of the track would drive on that side of the grid to shift as much of the crap as they possibly could to get better starts. But obviously starting on the side where the racing line goes is going to be way more beneficial. And then the story diverges. The FIA either says yes, only to tell Senna later that they can't/won't, or they just flat out refuse. But at some point in the last 30 years or so, that has now become pole position was on the clean side prior to the race weekend, and then they moved it once Senna had got pole position. But the fact is, pole position had always been there. Berger had started from pole in 1987, which was the first race of Formula 1 at Suzuka, and then Senna started from pole in 88, 89 and now 1990. And on your screen is a screen cap of the start of the 1989 Grand Prix. Pole is on the left hand side of your screen, the dirty side. So if it had always been there, then it couldn't have been moved, right? Unless people have misinterpreted the they agreed to move it only that they never did as they moved it and then reversed the decision only after Senna got pole, and then that, I think, has become the basis for they moved it to screw him. But either way, triggering a forced meme, Senna wasn't particularly happy about this and felt that this was the FIA messing with him once again. And then he did the whole, well, if Prost is ahead into turn 1, we're both not making it. And then what happened, and then afterwards it sparked the now often used out of context, if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver line. Now I get a lot of flack calling me a Senna hater and looking for any opportunity to rag on him, even when I haven't ragged on him. And I've said many times on this channel that Senna is one of the most naturally gifted human beings to ever get behind the wheel of a racing car, along with Jim Clark, Mario Andretti, and I'd even put Sebastian Loeb in that elite group as well. But when Senna does stuff like he did at Suzuka 1990 because of perceived injustice, it actually makes him very interesting to me. I'm interested in the thinking behind it. I mean, I'm no psychologist, I've never understood it, I've never stood it. I mean, somewhere on that bookshelf is a copy of Mein Kampf, and I read about 2 chapters of it and then had to put it down because it was a bit too intense, but I want to learn why people do these kinds of things. I watch documentaries on school shooters. Senna would invest his personal wealth into helping the underprivileged in Brazil, a very noble cause. He helped Eric Comas at Spa without considering the risk to his own safety, but would then go and fire another driver off the road at 150 miles an hour on purpose because he was still pissed off from something that happened 12 months ago. Suzuka 89, Suzuka 1990 are topics in motorsport I could study forever. A bit like Option 13 and everything else that happened during 1994, and how 30 years later a lot of people now have this belief that something is true when really it wasn't. And those same people will remain adamant that it is true, and I think Senna's godlike status following his untimely death may help fuel that belief that many have, that pole position was switched from the clean to the dirty side just to screw with him. You know, after it had been moved to the clean side, and then, yeah, that stuff. I'm going off script now. And for some younger viewers, they might be too used to seeing pole position on the clean side in Formula 1 and never realise that back in the olden days that pole position was on the dirty side. At Bathurst, it still is on the dirty side. I think it is at Brands Hatch as well. And I guess at this point we can throw back to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Star Wars. The truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. The truth is often what we make of it. You hear what you want to hear and believe what you want to believe. But I'd like to know what you think. Where do you think this idea came from? Is it Mandela effect? Is it just a misinterpretation of the FIA saying yes and then going back on it, or something else entirely? Leave all your thoughts in the comments and get a discussion going, because I do genuinely find these things very, very interesting, and the debates behind it are pretty good, and you know, debates on this channel's comments sections are usually pretty chill, so why not? Go for it. And if you do like the video, you know what to do, and for more stuff like this, click subscribe, get the bell on, and then you'll get all the latest from this channel. Big thanks as well to the people of Patreon for their continued support. If you want to join them, or just follow Discord, Twitter, Instagram, I'll leave all the links you need down in the description box for you. So until next time, I've been AdmiralLaWind. Hope you enjoyed this quick video, and I'll see you again soon for another video. So until then, goodbye.